Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Lifestyle Beautiful event, How Stress Affects Gut Health. So we're so excited to bring this webinar to you. And in a moment, I'll introduce Bree, who is our speaker today. I wanted to tell you all a little bit about Lifestyle Beautiful and why I created this organization. So my name's Megan Ward, and I created Lifestyle Beautiful because I couldn't find, after almost 2 decades in HR, a full suite of offerings for employee well-being. We really stop at the wellness program, we stop at the benefits offering or the EAP, but our team of national coaches is so well versed in all of the things that they do around well-being for individual and group well-being. So I'm excited to bring these series of events and webinars to you that really focus on topics that can give education. That's really what Lifestyle Beautiful is about empowering you to live your best life. So without further ado, I'll introduce Bree Obiad. Bree is a health and life coach who received her coaching certification from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and an honorary degree in gut health. So she's our resident expert today, and I'm so excited to learn a lot from her. Bree, why don't you go ahead and take it away and then share anything else you'd like to share about yourself?
Yeah, no, that was a great introduction. Thank you for being here and for introducing me. So today we're going to be talking about stress and how it influences digestion. And we're going to begin with the gut-brain axis, which is a fancy name for the communication pathway linking the gut and the brain. So it may surprise you to find out that your gut is full of neurons and neurotransmitters. They are nerve cells in our body that basically send messages and receive messages, and neurotransmitters are the kind of the male people, the mailman and the mail woman carrying those messages from neuron to neuron. And so there's this gut brain axis that I'm talking about is something we can all relate to. And I'm going to ask the question, have you ever experienced the sensation of having butterflies in your stomach? We all have, right? I definitely have. And well, that's because when we get nervous or fearful, blood actually gets diverted from our gut to our muscles. And our gut is not so happy about that. And so it gives us the sensation of having butterflies in our stomach. And it's kind of the stomach's way of protesting. And because our gut has so many nerve cells and neurotransmitters, scientists often refer to it as the second brain and more formally as the enteric nervous system. So let's just be clear, the gut isn't capable of conscious thought. You're not going to be able to use it to write a poem or do your taxes. But it can tell us if we're stressed in unhealthy or unhelpful ways. And so let's think about the gut for a moment a little bit more. What are some other functions that the gut performs aside from what we just learned? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you have some ideas. So perhaps the most obvious function of the gut is to digest our food and also pull nutrients from that food and break it down into a form that makes it easy for our body to absorb. And we just learned about these neurons. Okay, so you can see that first statistic there on the left, we've got 50 to 100 million nerve cells. There's also the immune system. So 70% of our body's immune system is in our gut. And in fact, I quote from a book called 10% Human. There are more immune cells living in the wall of your gut than circulating in your blood or residing in your bone marrow. That's wild. And you might ask why? Like, why do we have so many immune cells in our gut of all places? Well, when you think about it, what happens when you eat some uncooked seafood? Where does all that harmful bacteria go? It goes to our gut, right? We're going to digest that food that we've just eaten. And so it's only natural that 70% of our immune system is there also. It's there to take care of any food poisoning we might come across. Or if you're a toddler, if you've been around a toddler, think about them putting things in their mouth all the time, anything that they can swallow, basically. So toddlers really need to have a strong immune system in their gut. And what else? What else does the gut do? The gut is also home to a host of endocrine cells and 20 different types of hormones. And they can all be released into the bloodstream. One example of this is serotonin. So 95% of your body's serotonin is actually in your gut. And it's a hormone you may have heard of. It's essential for things like peristalsis. So again, that's the muscular contraction, moving food through your digestive system. That's what that is. Also sleep, appetite, pain sensitivity, mood regulation. Serotonin is a mood stabilizer, and that's in your gut. So there's all these things that your gut performs, but today we're going to focus on how your gut is related to the stress that you're experiencing, and how does the stress that we register in our brain work its way to our digestive system. So here's a picture of the vagus nerve, and the brain and gut are connected via this vagus nerve, which is basically thick nerve cables. So if you look at the diagram here, it's kind of that yellow line. It starts kind of where that facial nerve is and moves all the way down this wiggly shape towards the digestive tract. You can see kind of the outline of the intestines there. And this basically sends information up and information down. And what kind of messages are being communicated here? So it's how we know when we're full, it's how we know when we're nauseous, when we have those gut feelings. Again, we talked about the sensation of butterflies in our stomach. That's possible because of this vagus nerve. So the surprising thing is we really do feel things in our gut as a result of this gut-brain axis. So now we're gonna play a little game of Never Have I Ever. And so if you want to take a moment, go get yourself a beverage. I've got some peppermint tea right here. I guess we can recommend that you drink water or herbal tea, but you know, if you want a glass of wine, no judgment. This is a safe space. And yeah, once you're ready, let's go. All right, so the first one, again, so how you play Never Have I Ever, if this is your first time playing, is you take a sip if you have had this experience, right? So the first one is never have I ever had traveler's constipation. So I'm gonna drink to that one. And the next one is pre-presentation diarrhea. I'm also gonna add thirst. Before giving this webinar, I was very thirsty because I was a little bit in fight or flight mode. And the next one is post-argument stomach ache. So if you've gotten in a fight with your partner, your parent, your child, a friend, and you kind of feel sick to your stomach afterward. Anyone had that experience? And how about workday bloat? I'm gonna drink to all of these. Okay, I've got a bonus one for you. That's not on the slide. So if you've ever lost your appetite around someone you really like or want to impress, like you're super hungry, and then when you finally get to your lunch or your dinner, you just find out that you have no appetite. Yeah. So there you have it. These are all ways that stress influences digestion, and your experience of being in your body. So what's going on here? We've got an overactive sympathetic nervous system. What does that mean? So basically with our nervous system has two modes, right? We've got this fight, flight, or freeze response, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And then we also have rest and digest, which it sounds very similar, but it has something in the beginning. It's the parasympathetic nervous system. So if we look at them side by side, this is a fun way to visualize them. We've got the sleepy cat on the left and our fighting goats coming head to head on the right. And these are the two modes of our nervous system. And one is this rest and digest, and one is this fight or flight mode. And one trick I use to kind of distinguish between the two to remember them, since they kind of sound the same, is the parasympathetic nervous system is longer word. It takes a little time to get through, whereas the sympathetic nervous system is kind of short, snappy. And so the longer one is the rest and digest, and the shorter one is the fight or flight. So that's kind of a fun way to remember. So how can you tell which mode you're in? Because we don't always know, right? It's very subtle. And so when you're in fight or flight mode, you'll be exhausted. You may have difficulty sleeping, also headaches, dizziness, or shaking. You'll have some high blood pressure, muscle tension or jaw clenching. Another popular one is, grinding your teeth. Stomach or digestive problems, trouble having sex. That might be just a hard time getting aroused, or maybe just not very interested in sex. And then a weakened immune system and extreme thirst. And then when you're in rest and digest mode, you can fall asleep easily, and you're not going to wake up in the middle of the night or have some interruptions. You're going to experience healthy bowel movements. So none of that traveler's constipation we were drinking to earlier. You'll experience sexual arousal, sufficient energy, and a strong immune system. So now that we're able to kind of listen to our bodies and know the difference between these two modes, it's helpful to think about events or activities in your daily or weekly life that trigger that fight or flight response, even in subtle ways. So let's just take a moment to reflect on our day, on our week, and, think about, what were those things that made us feel exhausted? What were those things that got our blood pressure high? And it could be running late for a meeting. It could be being behind on your bills, having too many social events, especially if you're an introvert, balancing too many projects, meal planning, relational conflict. These are all, part of our lives. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's good to be aware of, right? And so let's look at our list and think about not only the fact that they're there, because we don't necessarily need to eliminate them, right? Because they're a part of our life and they're there for a good reason a lot of the time. But so it's not, again, about what you're doing, but about the fact that you're doing it constantly. That can be the thing that's causing stress. And so it can be as simple as working in rest throughout your day in between those tasks. So it's, forming a different relationship with these triggers. And, a to-do list is only so helpful if you remember to rest when you need to, not just moving automatically from one task to the next. It's really when you build in rest that those tasks don't really seem so stressful anymore. So let's take a moment to think about, ask yourself, what might that look like for you to build in rest throughout your day? So it's nice to do something practical. Want this webinar to actually give you some tools you can come away with. So we're going to practice a great way to rest and reset through a breathing exercise, because it's something you can do anywhere, anytime. It's called the 5-5-5 breathing exercise. I picked it because it's really easy to remember, but there are many other breathing exercises you can try. So let's do this together. It's very simple. What we're going to do is breathe in for 5 seconds, hold our breath for 5 seconds, and then breathe out for 5 seconds. So let's just do this together. We're going to breathe in. We're going to hold. And we're going to breathe out. Let's do that 2 more times. Let's breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Once more. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Take a moment and just think about how you feel right now. Do you feel a little bit more relaxed? Do you feel a little bit more grounded? It's a really easy exercise that can really profoundly change how you feel, and move again from that fight or flight mode into that rest or digest mode. And kind of like brushing your teeth or washing your hands, mindful breathing is just one of those everyday habits that can really help you build your vagal tone, again, that vagus nerve we talked about, and help you recover from stressful events more quickly. So speaking of the vagus nerve, we're going to talk about other ways you can stimulate it other than just doing that 5-5-5 breathing exercise. So other techniques or methods you can do are to sing, chant, hum, or gargle. Even gargling water, as funny as that sounds, can tone your vagus nerve. And that's because your vocal cords and muscles in the back of your throat are very close to that vagus nerve. And so that all helps with your vagal tone. Also getting moving, so exercise. It could be as simple as going for a walk or even getting up out of your chair and taking a cold swim or shower and going for a short walk in the cold without a heavy jacket. Again, nothing to induce hypothermia, but if you can get comfortable being cold every once in a while, that can actually be really good for your vagal tone. And again, vagal tone is all about just how quickly your body can relax after a stressful event. And so that's a good thing to work on. And these are fun things to do, right? If you like to sing in the shower, sing in the car, keep doing it. Another one is disable notifications. This is a big one. And that's because psychologists have found that notifications create a lot of chemical stress in the body, things like sweaty palms, general queasiness. So that's all the beeps, buzzes, vibrations. They all kind of create this ongoing chemical stress in our bodies. And it floods our body with hormones like dopamine and cortisol, especially when we're preparing to respond to something. We feel like, oh, we have to be ready. And so have you ever felt anxious, thinking about what to reply to someone's text, or asking yourself, oh, how long should I respond? Wait to respond to this text, or how should I word it? All these things can kind of create stress. And so it can be helpful to disable all of your notifications, or even just choose on an app by app basis. Maybe there are some notifications that are more stressful than others. And so you can decide for yourself what feels right. You can also opt to put your phone on silent for part of the day and just silence notifications for a chunk of time to just let yourself recharge. And then if you want to create a better work-life balance, a lot of us have work-related apps on our phones. And then when we're coming home from the workday, they're still alerting us, these are apps like Outlook and Slack. And maybe there's a way to either uninstall them for your phone if that's something you have the freedom to do, or if you're on your phone all the time for work and you can't really set up that particular boundary, maybe you can set up kind of a good argument for needing a separate phone for work and having your company pay for it, and you can turn it off when you're off the clock. So those are some ideas. And then the next one is create a screen-free bedtime routine. So most of us are well aware by this point that blue light suppresses melatonin and makes it harder for us to fall asleep and stay asleep. And that's one aspect of it, and that's an important aspect. But another reason for why it's good to create a screen-free bedtime routine is because things like social media posts can trigger powerful emotional reactions that can activate a stress response. And that's just something to be mindful of. Many of us think we have insomnia when really we just lack a proper bedtime routine. I thought I had insomnia for years, and it was because I just didn't have good sleep hygiene. After the stress and stimulation of the day, it's really normal to need to decompress. And so having a bedtime routine improves the quality of your sleep and also improves, just how you deal with stress throughout the next day. So here are some ideas for what you can do at night besides, watching television or scrolling through social media on your phone. There's a lot of other things you can try, such as reading a book, having sex, listening to music, meditating, coloring, crocheting, singing, journaling, taking a bath, doing some light yoga. I mean, there are a lot of ideas. If you have some ideas of your own, please drop them in the chat. These are just ways you can prepare your body for this restful night of sleep. And it also helps to dim down those lights, lower your thermostat. One of our other health coaches did a great webinar about good sleep hygiene. So if you want some ideas, you got to check that out. Yeah, so this is a great one. Oh, and I was going to mention too. So if you're a parent or remember being a child, just think about parents often have these nighttime routines for their children, like reading before bed, is a common one. And, that's something that we can do for ourselves as adults, you know. The next one is recognize when you need a short break. So again, this power of taking a pause. And here are just some ideas, to take a full lunch break if you can. There's a few reasons why this is good. One, because it's a nice long break. Two, because it's best not to eat when you're in fight or flight mode. Sometimes when you're trying to shovel down lunch and you're getting notifications and you're trying to respond to emails, basically your body is kind of in this fight or flight mode, but you're trying to digest at the same time. And so there's kind of this conflict of interest with your body. And so it's really nice if you can kind of take that full lunch break and kind of unplug from work completely. Another way to take a break during the day is to go get yourself a cup of tea. Again, herbal if you can, just because caffeine does kind of trigger some of those same things as the fight or flight mode, with the you feel your heart rate increase, things like that. And another one is closing your office door if you are getting interrupted a lot, or maybe people aren't respectful of you needing a break or needing your lunch break. Sometimes a closed door can go a long way. Also taking a mindful walk and taking a look at nature and something that fills you with joy. So some of the perks of this are rested people tend to be more creative and productive with their time. And although this kind of varies, we seem to naturally need a break about every 52 minutes of focused work, which might seem like a lot. Of course, every person is unique and might have a different number. So that's just something to pay attention to. Try to notice when you're losing focus and take a quick pause. It might just be a quick 5-5-5 breathing exercise or, getting yourself a cup of tea, but just paying attention to when you naturally lose focus. And then another benefit is taking regular breaks protects your brain from decision fatigue and other forms of stress and burnout. So lots of perks with this one. And rest is really not the same as entertainment. I think sometimes I know I have confused them as the same thing because it feels restful to me. And so I just wanted to take a moment to just kind of talk about the difference. So rest is this idea of shutting off, whereas entertainment is kind of switching focus. So depending on, what kind of way you're trying to entertain yourself, it might still be taxing on your brain and on your body. And so there are different forms of rest. And here they are. They're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, creative, social, and sensory. And so what are the differences between them? So physical, of course, we know if our physical body is tired, a lot of an easy way to kind of recover would be to nap or to sleep. Mental, again, try not to think about something too hard. If you've mentally exerted yourself, really try not to use that part of your brain. Emotional rest is to check in with your emotions, journal. If we've had an emotionally charged week, it's really important to kind of debrief those emotions and have a safe place where we can process them, right? And then spiritual rest, again, these are activities that foster deep and meaningful connections with, it could be nature, God, humanity at large, anything that makes us feel connected to something bigger and more important and more meaningful. And then creative, these are activities that fill you with awe and wonder. Creative rest is really important. Social rest, even spending time in the company of people who lift us up is a form of rest. And sensory rest. So, sometimes if I don't know if you've ever walked down the street and you've heard sirens and dump trucks and you've seen bright lights, and sometimes that can be its own form of exhaustion. And so taking a sensory rest can be as simple as just kind of sitting in a dark room, even taking a nap. So those are different forms of rest that you may be needing. So I'm gonna pick on television for a moment, not because I don't think it's a good form of rest. I still rely on it myself, and it does provide something very helpful. But it's good to realize that it's a very nuanced type of rest, right? It's physical rest because you're typically, sitting on the couch or in bed, and so that could be a nice type of physical rest. But it may not be the type of rest you need if you're looking for, let's say, creative rest or social rest. And it's certainly, not the only type, right? And so it can be really restful if it's, a comedy or a familiar show. It has characters we really like. But what scientists have found is that once the show is over, we can still feel exhausted. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but in the moment when you're watching the show, you might feel like you have this sanctuary, but as soon as it's over, you just feel really tired. And, our moods tend to be the same or worse than before. And so that's just good to keep in mind, is that it's a nice tool to have, but maybe not the only one. And also what kind of content you watch matters. If you need more creative rest, for instance, Planet Earth is probably going to be a much better choice than, say, Handmaid's Tale. So even just thinking about what type of content you're consuming and how it affects you is going to really help you rest well. Okay, so at the end, I thought it'd be fun if we play our game again. But this time we're going to play This Week I Will Try, which is going to try to, work on one of these habits or try out one of these habits and just see if it works for your lifestyle. And so if you still have your drink handy or if you need to go refill, you can go do that now. And we can play This Week I Will Try. And even though it's tempting to try to do them all at once, my challenge to you would be just to pick one, just because change is hard, and long lasting change really comes about with these small incremental steps. And so even if you choose one this week, if you're going strong, maybe in a couple weeks you try another one. And yeah, they're always there for later, so don't feel any pressure to pick them all now. All right, so if you have your cup of tea or water or wine nearby, we'll do This Week I Will Try to create a bedtime routine. So take a sip if that's something you want to try this week. The second one, to disable notifications on my phone. To take a full lunch break. And then last one, to tone my vagal nerve by doing something fun. I'm going to drink to that one. That's my challenge to myself this week. And I did want to mention too that, change is really hard, even something as simple as, disabling notifications on your phone or creating a bedtime routine. It can be nice to have that accountability, someone to help you, look at your life and reflect on your lifestyle and work on some of these things. I know for me, I've actually worked with a health coach to create a bedtime routine and to tone my vagal nerve. I've had digestive issues for the past 10 years. And so even making some of these changes, I've seen just how powerful they can be. And but I've needed help to do that. I needed a health coach. And so if you find that you also would benefit from some accountability, Lifestyle Beautiful has health coaches that you can work with. And we can certainly support you in this area. So don't hesitate to reach out if you feel like you'd benefit from support. Can also draw on support from family and friends if they want to go in on this challenge with you. So I just wanted to leave some time for any questions. If anyone had any questions for me before we say goodbye today.
Thanks so much, Bree. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see any so far, but I just had some comments. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Sure.
This was so informative. And I love the connection between stress and digestion. It's not something we think about every day, that stress literally triggers or offsets ways that we could be in that rest and digest mode. So I loved learning more about that. Especially for me, what's a note is rest versus entertainment. I think I've got to go back and just evaluate some things there because I definitely see rest because it's enjoyment and entertainment, but rest really is disconnecting. So probably not binge watching something on one of my favorite streaming channels that shall not be mentioned. So so I love just being able to even check some of the routines that I have and going back. I think we also have Julie on the line. I'll turn it over to her and let her share some thoughts and words too. And then I think we'll be done this evening. Julie, are you online?
I am online. I have to say, Bree, wow. This is it's like picking between your children as to which is your favorite, but I have to say for me, this has been one of my top webinars. And if you are tuning in to this webinar, I want you to know that we have some very high caliber individuals, very knowledgeable in their field, like our coach here, Bree is. But this has been so good. I love the exercises to really tone your vagal nerve because this is what happens to a lot of us. We're not really aware that this is happening. And then we're really starting to treat some of the outcomes from um, our gut health not being where it should be. And we're treating the symptoms as opposed to the root cause of what is
Mm.
happening. And Bree is so knowledgeable in this. This is a great webinar for all of us to really go back and revisit. So even if you watched it today, save it, share it with your friends because we all know people who are struggling with these concerns. I want to
Mm.
tell you that Lifestyle Beautiful has a great array of content. And if you are looking for the right support system for your company or for you individually, you can leverage the knowledge and the amazing skills and support that we have with our coaches like Bree. I love this webinar. I'm going to go watch it again. I'm going to share it with people in my life as well because it has been phenomenal. And thank you so much for putting this content together so that we can continue to learn because as the holidays are coming, this is when we are kind of get knocked out of our routines. We really allow a lot of distractions to elevate our flight or fight response. So thank you so much for sharing this. This has been incredible. I loved it.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. Thanks,
Yeah,
Megan.
phenomenal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Thanks again.